Have you ever wondered about the divine laws that shaped civilizations for millennia? Imagine standing at the base of a towering mountain, amidst a sea of tents and campfires, with a community of people who have just escaped slavery. Among them is a man named Moses, a leader chosen by a divine voice from a burning bush. Today we journey with Moses up Mount Sinai, where he receives the Ten Commandments. Stay with us as we explore these profound commandments, their historical impact, and their timeless relevance.
Mount Sinai, a rugged peak rising over 7,000 feet above sea level, forms the dramatic backdrop for one of the most significant moments in biblical history. Located in the Sinai Peninsula, this austere and remote mountain is where the Israelites, recently freed from Egyptian bondage, camped after a harrowing journey through the wilderness. This journey, fraught with trials, was not just a test of endurance but also a period of spiritual preparation. In Exodus 19:1-2, we read about the Israelites' arrival at Mount Sinai. In the third month after the Israelites left Egypt, on the very day, they came to the desert of Sinai. After they set out from Rephidim, they entered the desert of Sinai, and Israel camped there in the desert in front of the mountain. This was no ordinary campsite. It was a sacred ground where God would extraordinarily reveal himself. The scene at Mount Sinai is vividly depicted in Exodus 19:16-19. On the morning of the third day there was thunder and lightning with a thick cloud over the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. This theophany, God's dramatic and awe-inspiring appearance, emphasized his power and holiness. Before this encounter, the Israelites were instructed to consecrate themselves. Exodus 19:10-11 records God's command to Moses. "Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes and be ready by the third day, because on that day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people." This preparation underscored the sacredness of the event and the need for purity when approaching the divine. As Moses ascended the mountain, leaving the trembling Israelites below, he stepped into a unique role as the mediator between God and his people. This moment on Mount Sinai, where Moses would receive the Ten Commandments, was not just a historical event but a foundational episode that would shape the faith and identity of the Israelites for generations. The laws given here would define their relationship with God and with one another, marking a new chapter in their covenantal journey. Moses, the central figure in this narrative, was uniquely chosen and prepared by God to lead the Israelites out of Egyptian bondage and to receive the Ten Commandments. His journey from Prince of Egypt to shepherd, and finally to the leader of the Israelites, is a testament to divine selection and preparation. Born into a time of severe oppression, Moses' early life was marked by danger. In Exodus 2:1-10, we see his miraculous survival as an infant, when his mother placed him in a basket in the Nile River to save him from Pharaoh's decree to kill all Hebrew male infants. Pharaoh's daughter found him and raised him as her own, giving him the unique experience of Egyptian royal education and culture. Despite his royal upbringing, Moses never forgot his Hebrew roots. In Exodus 2:11-12, we read about his first act of leadership and justice. One day, after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Looking this way and that and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. This act, although impulsive and violent, demonstrated his innate sense of justice and his deep connection to his people. After fleeing Egypt, Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness of Midian, where he encountered God in the burning bush. This encounter, described in Exodus 3:1-10, marks the moment of his divine commissioning. There, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. God called to him from within the bush, "Moses, Moses!" And Moses said, "Here I am." God's call to Moses was clear. "So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." Exodus 3:10. Despite his initial reluctance and self-doubt, as seen in Exodus 4:10-13, where Moses says, "Pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent. I am slow of speech and tongue." God reassured him of his presence and provision. Moses' leadership was characterized by his close relationship with God. He often interceded on behalf of the Israelites, such as in Exodus 32:11-14, when he pleaded with God to spare the people after they sinned with the golden calf. His role as mediator and leader was solidified when he ascended Mount Sinai to receive the Ten Commandments, a task that highlighted his unique position and the trust God placed in him. Thus, Moses stands as a pivotal figure, chosen by God to guide his people through their most challenging trials, embodying the qualities of humility, perseverance, and deep faith necessary for such a monumental task. The ascent of Moses to Mount Sinai is one of the most dramatic and spiritually significant events in the Bible. This journey, detailed in Exodus 19, signifies a profound moment of communion between God and man, where the divine law was imparted to humanity. As the Israelites camped at the foot of Mount Sinai, they witnessed awe-inspiring natural phenomena that marked the presence of God. Exodus 19:16-19 describes the scene vividly. On the morning of the third day there was thunder and lightning with a thick cloud over the mountain, and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. The sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder. Then Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. The ascent itself was a physical and spiritual climb, symbolizing Moses' role as the intermediary between God and his people. In Exodus 19:3, God called Moses to the mountain. Then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, "This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob, and what you are to tell the people of Israel." This initial encounter set the stage for the covenant that was to be established. Moses' repeated ascents and descents are detailed throughout Exodus 19 and 20, underscoring the gravity and holiness of the event. Each time Moses climbed, he brought back divine instructions and reassurances to the Israelites. In Exodus 24:12-13, God said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and stay here, and I will give you the tablets of stone. With the law and commandments I have written for their instruction." Moses, accompanied by his aide Joshua, ascended the mountain and entered the cloud where God was. This ascent was not just a physical journey, but also a profound act of faith and obedience. It required Moses to leave behind the familiar and venture into the unknown presence of God. In Exodus 24:15-18, it is described how Moses stayed on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. When Moses went up on the mountain, the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai. For 6 days the cloud covered the mountain, and on the 7th day the Lord called to Moses from within the cloud. To the Israelites, the glory of the Lord looked like a consuming fire on top of the mountain. Then Moses entered the cloud as he went on up the mountain, and he stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. The ascent to Mount Sinai is a pivotal moment, filled with divine mystery and awe. It encapsulates the themes of revelation, covenant, and the profound relationship between God and his chosen leader, Moses. Theophany, or the appearance of God to humanity, is a profound and awe-inspiring event that takes place at Mount Sinai. This divine revelation is vividly described in Exodus 19 and 20, where God's presence is made manifest dramatically and tangibly to the Israelites. As Moses ascended Mount Sinai, the entire mountain was enveloped in a thick cloud, accompanied by thunder, lightning, and the sound of a trumpet that grew louder and louder. This intense natural display signified the imminent arrival of God Himself. Exodus 19:16-18 sets the scene. On the morning of the third day there was thunder and lightning, with a thick cloud over the mountain, and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke, because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. The Israelites, standing at the base of the mountain, were witnesses to this extraordinary display of divine power. The mountain quaking and the sound of the trumpet were not just awe-inspiring but also terrifying, underscoring the holiness and majesty of God. This theophany highlighted the vast gulf between the divine and human realms, emphasizing God's supreme authority and the need for reverence. In Exodus 20:18-19, the people's reaction to God's appearance is recorded. When the people saw the thunder and lightning, and heard the trumpet, and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance and said to Moses, "Speak to us yourself, and we will listen. But do not have God speak to us, or we will die." The Israelites' fear and trembling demonstrate their recognition of God's overwhelming presence and their need for an intermediary, which Moses provided. This theophany is not just a spectacle, but also a moment of communication. God speaks to Moses and gives him the 10 commandments, inscribed on tablets of stone. These commandments serve as a foundational moral and legal code for the Israelites. Exodus 31:18 describes this divine act. When the Lord finished speaking to Moses on Mount Sinai, He gave him the 2 tablets of the covenant law, the tablets of stone, inscribed by the finger of God. The theophany at Mount Sinai is a pivotal moment in the biblical narrative, marking the establishment of a covenant between God and His people. It is a moment filled with awe, reverence, and the tangible presence of the divine, leaving an indelible mark on the collective memory of the Israelites. From this awe-inspiring scene, God spoke to Moses, delivering the first of the 10 commandments, "You shall have no other gods before me." This commandment was revolutionary in its call for exclusive worship. In a world where polytheism was the norm, the call to monotheism set the Israelites apart. It was not just a rejection of other gods, but an invitation to a unique, covenantal relationship with the one true God. Monotheism was a foundational principle for ancient Israel. It reinforced the idea that their God was not just another deity among many, but the supreme, sovereign Lord of all creation. This commandment laid the groundwork for the Israelites' identity as a people chosen by God, bound by a special relationship and covenant. The second commandment followed closely. "You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them." This commandment expanded on the first, explicitly forbidding the creation and worship of idols. In the ancient Near East, idol worship was pervasive. People crafted images of their gods from wood, stone, and precious metals, believing these idols could house the divine presence. The Israelites were commanded to reject this practice, emphasizing that God is transcendent and cannot be contained in any physical form. This commandment called the people to a higher, more abstract form of worship, one that focused on an unseen, yet ever-present God. The third commandment addressed the use of God's name. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. This commandment highlighted the sacredness of God's name and the importance of reverence in speech. In ancient times, a name was more than just a label. It encapsulated the essence and character of a person. Misusing God's name, whether through careless speech, false oaths, or blasphemy, was seen as a profound disrespect to the divine. This commandment called the Israelites to honor God not just in their actions, but in their words, recognizing the power and sanctity of the divine name. The fourth commandment introduced the concept of the Sabbath. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. This commandment provided a rhythm of work and rest, mirroring the divine pattern of creation. The Sabbath was a day set apart for rest and worship, a weekly reminder of God's creation and covenant. It was a gift to the people, offering physical rest and spiritual renewal. In contemporary times, the observance of the Sabbath continues in various forms within Judaism, Christianity, and other faith traditions, emphasizing the importance of balance and reflection in our busy lives. The fifth commandment shifted focus to family relationships. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. This commandment underscored the importance of familial respect and harmony. In ancient Israel, the family was the foundational unit of society. Respecting and honoring one's parents ensured the transmission of values, traditions, and faith from one generation to the next. This commandment recognized the crucial role of the family in maintaining social stability and continuity. The sixth commandment addressed the sanctity of life. You shall not murder. This straightforward commandment emphasized the intrinsic value of human life and the importance of protecting it. Murder was seen as the ultimate violation of God's creation. This commandment laid the groundwork for the legal and ethical principles that protect life in societies around the world. It called for justice and the preservation of human dignity, recognizing that every person is made in the image of God. The seventh commandment focused on marital fidelity. You shall not commit adultery. This commandment protected the sanctity of marriage and family life. Adultery was seen as a serious breach of trust and covenant, not just between individuals, but also within the community. It disrupted the social fabric and had far-reaching consequences. This commandment called the Israelites to uphold the integrity of their relationships and to respect the bonds of marriage. The eighth commandment addressed property rights. You shall not steal. This commandment protected individuals' possessions and reinforced the importance of honesty and integrity in communal life. Theft undermined trust and created conflict within the community. By forbidding theft, this commandment promoted a sense of security and mutual respect among the Israelites. It called them to respect one another's property and to foster a community based on fairness and justice. The ninth commandment dealt with truthfulness. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. This commandment emphasized the importance of honesty in legal and personal contexts. In ancient Israel, false testimony could lead to unjust punishment and the breakdown of trust within the community. This commandment called the Israelites to uphold the truth and to ensure justice through honest and accurate speech. It highlighted the role of truth in building and maintaining a just society. The 10th commandment addressed inner desires. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. This commandment focused on the dangers of envy and greed. Coveting or desiring what belongs to others could lead to actions that violate other commandments. By addressing the root of many sins, uncontrolled desire, this commandment encouraged the Israelites to cultivate contentment and gratitude. It called them to focus on their own blessings and to avoid the destructive power of envy. These commandments were not just spoken, they were inscribed on 2 tablets of stone, symbolizing their permanence and divine origin. Moses received these tablets as a tangible representation of the covenant between God and his people. The physicality of the tablets emphasized the seriousness and enduring nature of these laws. They were meant to be a constant reminder of God's expectations and the Israelites' commitment to live according to these divine principles. When Moses descended from the mountain carrying the tablets, he encountered a troubling scene. In his absence, the Israelites had crafted a golden calf and were engaging in idolatrous worship. This breach of the very first 2 commandments was a stark reminder of human fallibility and the challenges of maintaining faith. Moses' reaction was one of righteous anger. He broke the tablets, symbolizing the broken covenant, and confronted the people about their disobedience. This incident underscored the need for constant vigilance and adherence to God's commands. Despite this setback, God offered a chance for renewal. Moses returned to the mountain, and God graciously provided a new set of tablets. This renewal of the covenant highlighted God's mercy and the possibility of redemption. The Israelites' journey was one of continual learning and growth. The renewed covenant reinforced their commitment to live according to God's laws and to uphold the principles embodied in the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments have had a profound and lasting impact on legal and ethical systems throughout history. They provided a foundation for later laws and moral codes, influencing the development of Western legal traditions and beyond. These commandments are not just historical artifacts. They continue to shape the moral and ethical frameworks of societies around the world. Their principles of justice, integrity, and reverence for life resonate across cultures and religions. In contemporary society, the 10 Commandments remain relevant. They offer timeless guidance on how to live a life of integrity, respect, and devotion. Their principles can be seen in modern legal systems, ethical teachings, and religious practices. Reflecting on these commandments today, we can see their enduring power to inspire and guide us. They call us to a higher standard of behavior and a deeper relationship with the divine, guiding ourselves on these ancient laws. May we find wisdom and inspiration for our own lives, striving to live with integrity, compassion, and faith. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the 10 Commandments. Be strong, and may the peace of God always be with you.